This video is about a culmination of events from chapter 68 to 75, the Red Circus arc. I will review each chapter, but since I know how it ends, it is not a simple compilation of reviews. This will be a directed review of the whole arc. Moreover, I will discuss about the emotional state of the characters, the bonds that they share with each other, as well as the impact it has on the story. I will share my opinion on the subject when I feel like it's necessary, and I promise that it will be nuanced and detailed. The first chapter of the arc starts off pretty standardly, with her having an injury after fighting some tough guys the day before. This time, her hands are swollen. This will effectively show Lloyd's caring side to Yuri. Speaking of the wolf, he excitedly comes into the picture because he happens to not be working that day, to Lloyd's dissatisfaction. Yuri, as per usual, blames Yor's injuries on Lloyd and aggressively suggests him to make the food, but we know that he was already doing so. Saying that Yuri gave some kind words to Lloyd, Yuri feels the need to compete with him by cooking the food himself. Well, turns out that Yuri's food seems to taste bland, which makes the lack of culinary talent something that runs in the Breyer family. To this little defeat, he pushes Lloyd to make Yor taste his food and puts him down by his inability to feed his own wife. However, just when he was about to do so, Lloyd was illogically stopped by Yuri, for he did not want the spouses to bond together. I would like to note that even at this point in the story, Yor manages to be flustered by Lloyd's non-intimate act. Trust me, it's funnier when you play the scenario in your head. Now, it is Anya's turn to feed Yor, and unsurprisingly, the meticulous dish prepared by Lloyd is entirely superior to the brothers. But fear not, it is not over. The next unofficial competition is a dish battle. Dr. Forger's plates are clean and sparkly. SSS agent Yuri's are clean but broken. All of that was shown in a mere 2 page. Yuri shouts about laundry. To me, it really seems like he enjoys being embarrassed. Anyway, one cool detail that I would like to highlight is that Anya, from her own free will, is studying. It also feels like she does not want Plan C, the one about Melinda's and Yor, to replace her friendship scheme. I still feel like she is studying just to make her dad happy though. Just a hunch. So, Yuri loses the laundry duel. But one last challenge is made. This time, the fastest one between Lloyd and Yuri to get the groceries for the best deal win. Mr. Forger seems to go about it methodically like always, but Yuri's way is way more interesting for the reader. Indeed, a new character is introduced, the Snitch. He seems to be an equivalent of Frankie to Yuri, a resourceful informant. When I first read the chapter, I immediately suspected that this character was introduced to give more credibility to Yuri as an agent, as well as giving him some crucial information in a touchy situation. Remember him because he also seems to be an old friend of his, given that the informant called him Yuri, old buddy. Now, with the power of the SSS, he can now win against Lloyd. Hey, you will be surprised to learn that he actually won the last one. He was slower than Lloyd, sure. However, he brought a candy that he and Yor used to suckle on to scare away bears. Some whistle candies of some sort. And that seems to have given him back his confidence. Yor's special thanks. With his only W under his belt, he swiftly runs away from the house, as if he found his purpose in life. When I first read this chapter, I was kind of disappointed because Yuri's return was teased in the previous chapters in the hospital, but when we finally get to see him again after more than 10 chapters of Void, it was him doing the same things that he did the first time that he visited Lloyd and Yor. There was nothing new with his character, and it feels like the author didn't know what else to do with him in terms of humor, so he practically rehearsed chapter 10. I still kind of feel this way, however, believe me, you will like him in this arc. Now for this chapter, we are in the SS's director's office. Allegedly, it is involving the remnants of the extremist Red Circus group. Their leader, Billy Squire, is hiding somewhere outside the country, and the faction under his control is in Berlin. The Red Circus group first made their appearance in chapter 15.2, an extra mission chapter where Yor was tasked to eliminate members of the Red Circus. The hilariously deadly part is that a humorous chapter made around Yor not being able to sit down because of a shot to her bottom included a faction that would lead to a very serious arc over 50 chapters later. Back to the main point, we see the Eden kids in a school bus, Anya precisely, being excited for a cultural trip in a place we have no info on. Why would these rich kids go by bus, you might ask? Well, it is because the entire first years are going, so it is a valid justification for this story. I like that it was put here for the sake of consistency, even though it didn't have to be here. Hey, remember the old looking kid from the Dodgeball extra story? He's also here for some reason. Anyway, Anya is very determined to make the friendship scheme work, judging by how detailed and childish her plan seems to be. I mean, she made up a scenario about protecting Damien from being called ugly in her imagination, and that somehow will lead the world to peace. A detail from those humorous panels that I've noticed is that Anya is picking up some of Becky's expressions like Totes, Totes adorbs, I don't know how to say, and I've been a massive fan of seeing their friendship strengthen regularly. Finishing with her machinations, Anya catches Damien's attention only to create a very bizarre and provoking face. Whatever that was led Damien to try to hand her the cake that she longed for. Given his poor relationship with his parents, it seemed that it was his own intentions. However, his two goons were one belly further and ate the whole thing like it was mac and cheese. This antic brought us some closer look at Anya's diet, which primarily consists of peanuts at variable flavors, but everybody back in your seat, we're almost here. The shady driver seems to have passed the museum and broke away from the other school buses to finally stop at a point where two dangerous individuals boarded the bus, when one of them tased who seemed to be a supervisor of the trip. The same one also shot the tires of the escort vehicle of Eden Academy for safe measure. At this point, the bus was fully hijacked by the Red Circus. The beginning of this chapter stars Mr. Henderson. He learns about the situation and is told that the parents were not informed, meaning that Anya only has her guts to manage the situation. This is, in addition, a way to tell us that this arc is gonna become more delicate than the previous. So, Henderson gives the order to keep the situation a secret, which I personally think is wise. Back to the kids' point of view, they're panicking and it's good to see some kid-like reaction to the situation. After all, the fact that Anya can read minds made her more aware and smarter emotionally, and that kind of raised the bar for everyone else. Bill, the old kid, tries to reassure his classmate by stating that their parents are important people and are probably moving mountains in order to help them. Of course, he gets threatened by a gun by the terrorist, but I thought the use of this character was fantastic for this moment. Hell, even Damien was impressed. Then Billy, not to be confused with Bill, the kid, silently agrees with his statement by naming every of the children's parents as well as their position, which raises the tension. He then further explains his plan, which consists of using those kids for political purposes. I mean, it is to be expected. I don't think he's the type to do a surprise party like, surprise kids, here are your gifts, that was a prank, go home. Anyway, the more interesting part of his monologue is that he has a grudge against the elite. The class segregation seems especially bad in Westalis, given the way the kids were acting towards commoners at the start of the story. Afterwards, we get to see the bus hijacking situation arriving at Handler. However, it is not surprising to see her making the decision to not contact Boyd, given that he is in another mission. More so because he will try to rescue her daughter, if we're keeping it real. Later, the Eden kids are brainstorming some way to call for help amidst the fear of death. They seem rather brave, and their position, I wouldn't move an inch. Anyhow, little Anya was reading the mind of the hijackers, but before the lady could think of any more ways to deal with them, she pretended that she needed to pee. That allowed her to gather this information. They're about 30 minutes out from Papier Palace Park. She promptly tells Becky, who is now thinking on a way to get this information out of the bus. They settled on writing a secret note, and Anya was the one doing it. It made me laugh out loud the first time to know that it wasn't really encrypted. She just had terrible writing, just like when she took the test at the start of the manga. As a result, Becky wrote the note to later put it in a tin, which caught the attention of Damien, who sent his own message warning them to not get themselves killed. It is great to see that in a dire situation, Damien doesn't really try to act tough and is concerned about other people's well-being. Next, Anya sends a note to Damien. He doesn't get it by the writing. Becky translates and he takes action. He is going to try to make a distraction. I never expected him to utter those words. However, we get to see this legendary panel of Damien Desmond threatening to crap his pants. It cannot get better than this. This was so funny that it makes us forget that they are living a very serious scenario. This is a very pertinent example on how this arc is able to make us laugh while still maintaining its strong atmosphere. This little phrase was not enough to take me out of the experience. It just made it more sincere, and this is why I think it worked. Amidst the confusion, the girl duo throws the SOS tin outside the window, which was loud enough to attract Billy's attention. Though their note seems to have found readers, Anya's neck found a bomb. Billy's way to keep her quiet. End of the chapter. And parallel to Wise finding out about the hostage situation, the SSS seems to be the next one in line, and the Black Belt Company was the one informing them. Another difference to note is that unlike Wise, the SSS are shown to disregard the hostages, and are more focused about the suppression of the suspects, which screams bad guy. However, I must say that this is rather realistic. Running towards the scene, Yuri shouts about Chihuahua girls, thinking he could save her, except his superior formally orders him to not go to the crime scene and to not tell a single soul about the situation, similarly to Wise. That little conversation had Yuri trying to convince himself that he did not care about Anya by picturing that her death would lead to Yor feeling intense sadness, though we know that he had his heart at the right place in this moment. He's kinda playing at tsundere to his emotion, practically. The next scene is set in a place that we are about to see for the first time, the Black Belt Company. Somebody is shouting a code 8814, and it is no other than Becky's dad. He is rather pragmatic in his methods, as he is trying to mobilize every tank and fighter jet and his storage system in order to save his daughter. Thankfully, Martha, his butler, de-escalates the situation by hitting him on the head. The dynamic of this duo is rather special. You got Becky's dad, who looks to be younger, in addition to be very emotional by the look of things. And you got Marta, an older woman who is not afraid to reprimand her boss, as well as looking very disciplined and calm, despite her emotional attachment to Becky. Back to the hijacking, everyone is panicking about the bomb device around Anya's neck. We got to enjoy another emotional moment from Becky being destroyed at the thought of Anya dying. Like father, like daughter, you love to see it. Those details feel very genuine whenever I come across them. I will never get tired of seeing their friendship grow. Though, to my demise, Billy confirms that the bombs are fake. Not to them, obviously, which kinda reduces the weight of this chapter in my opinion, as well as the Becky Anya moment from before. It's one thing to remove some tension, but I still don't understand why it had to be this chapter and not the chapter after, because the stress accumulated from the last panel of the last chapter has been practically removed. 6 pages and the chapter right after this one. If it had been revealed in the next chapter, we would have seen a very important side of Anya, one where she is afraid to use her powers or to do anything in fear of putting everyone in danger. Well, now that I think about it, perhaps this facet is saved so the author has a card to pull and an even more important character development. Or maybe it would have been judged too mature for a comedy manga, which is true, but Tatsuya Endo has shown in the past that he can manage those and leave us with a laugh. Anyhow, it is not a completely bad decision for the reason that we will explore Anya's empathy, given that she is the only one that knows about the fake device. Plus, we are shown that Billy is not the kind of person who would actively try to hurt kids. A little forward in the future, Anya acts relieved about the information, leaving other people speechless about her nerves of steel. Damien is so flabbergasted that he suspects her of being raised by an assassin, not knowing that it is the actual case. That led her to fantasize about Plan B yet again. To put matters worse, she does the face that she mislearned from her mom and taps the bomb device smugly, the fake bomb device. This seriously put me in a small laughing streak. I mean, holy cow, those 2 panels are killing me. You're just seeing Anya's smacking a bomb and everyone is so scared. Well, obviously, people rightfully got terrified for their lives and inaudibly complained in their minds, which has fortunately dazed Anya. Whew. Consequently, Damien, believing that it was only to reassure people, advanced forward and demanded that Anya's bomb being put in his neck instead, basically putting his life in danger and acting as a leader for his classmates. That heroic demonstration deeply moved Anya. Unclimatically to his wishes, Desmond got another bomb placed around his neck instead. It is very interesting to note that Billy uttered, "Equality is what we're all about." He seemed less and less extremist in his ideologies as time goes on. Maybe he worked with the Red Circus against his will. In another note, contrary to Anya, Damien is having an existential crisis here and there, which is partially fueled by his self-consciousness. He even begs for his mom and dad, even though they aren't exactly close. Since this is Desmond we're talking about, all of those thoughts are happening in his mind. But since Little Forger was gifted the power to read them, we got the chance to look at a panel of Anya curing his fears. Hell, she even tells him about the fake device. This therapy session drove Becky to admire her maturity. Yet, Anya still does not get a clue and pridefully thumps her collar another time. And consequences, or maybe not, the boss convulses as if a bomb was about to explode. Fortunately for them, the police has just arrived. And this is chapter 71.1, and as you know, I have a lot to say about this chapter. Or maybe not. Well, this chapter is only one page, so just eat that one illustration. Like, imagine waiting for 1 month for that. It looks really good though, I like it. Anyway, just let's go to chapter 72. The arrival of the police is causing quite a commotion and the buzz between the two camps. The glee of the kids left no choice to Billy but to give them a warning shot, terrifying their little faces. Evidently, since they don't know about the telepathy, the Red wandered in a dead end, the one at fault. No matter what they are presently thinking, the police, not the SSS, are sternly asking for the hostages back. The Red Circus were planning on just driving away, to their demise however. The concussion that the eating kids thought was the bomb detonating was actually just the tires of the bus getting pierced. On the other direction of the police is stated to be the SSS. Having the two sides one in another direction is a symbolic way to compare their two vastly different moral compass, for the reason that we know that the SSS do not fear to use intimidation or torture in order to achieve their goals. Furthermore, citizens call them the secret police, which adds another layer in their opposition, that are joined together by the word police. To put matters worse, Billy even points out that they are not easily put off by hostages. Considering this troublesome situation for them, he threateningly orders the scholars to cover the windows with black cloths, thanks to his gun. As the police is demanding a surrender, the Red leader brings forth Damien, his most valuable hostage, who still has the explosive device attached. Now, seeing that the police are attentive, he gives his two demands. The first is freedom for all 17 of our imprisoned Red Circus comrades. The second is safe passage for us and all of them to the nation of Nortica. In his own words, he will also release 5 students for each of his comrades who is prisoner. This left the police officer in an awkward position. The SSS officer makes his presence known and stipulates that the terrorists fall under their jurisdiction and that they do not negotiate with terrorists. The moral cop of the secret police is made even darker when he asks the police officer if he would endanger the lives of all of his compatriots for the sake of a few dozen civilians. The non-civilians is used rather than children, and a way to get him to cooperate, as well as the adjective few. Plus, the question cannot even be asked because, realistically, all of his compatriots' life will not be endangered at the same time. Yet, the police officer holds his ground, but he learns, just as we do, that the negotiation cannot work anyway because some of the Red Circus's members are dead. Inside the vehicle, Billy is yet again pressed by one of his allies to do something, though he has enough sense to think of a better strategy, that is to stall for time, so the SSS does not have an excuse to storm them. In parallel, Damien gets back in his seat and he seems more nagged by the fact that he could cause some trouble for his father than anything related to his safety. Bill, the kid, gives him and all of the other kids some powerful advice on how they should wait for help instead of trying to be proactive about the situation and save the day. At this point, Damien verbalizes what everybody's thinking while reading. Man, you really are just a 40-year-old grade schooler. Next, Handler is trying her hardest to find Anya's location, not advancing very much. Fortunately, one of the members at Wise points out that the kebab guy, an informant from a previous chapter, saw the exact location of the bus. For anyone who doesn't remember, the kebab guy was featured in chapter 63, where they were trying to corner somebody. I remember this chapter vividly because Handler beat the living frick off a guy with her belt, so it left a big impression on me. With their knowledge gained, Handler leaks the information to the police. That lead also helped the SSS. They probably wiretapped Eden Academy to get it. The important thing is that Yuri got to listen to it, still attached to a pillar for some reason. Apparently, the strange bus was sighted in the Dam Forest district, which is somewhere he has a lot of informants. Hey, remember in chapter 68 when I said that the character of the snitch will come very handy in a very serious arc? This is precisely what I'm talking about. With the help of that character, Yuri narrowed down the search area effectively. I would like to note that we are talking about another bus, not the one containing Anya. Nevertheless, it is good to see Yuri being competent at what he's doing, and even after all of his failures against Lloyd. It is very shocking how his two facets are so independent of each other. For all of the joke chapters, he remains for me a very serious individual. Back to Anya's perspective, the kids are going out one at a time in order to do their deed. Billy gives another insight about his philosophy. If this is what embarrasses you, you've led a charmed life indeed. For him at least, it seems that he genuinely wants the Red Circus to erase the artificial line between commoners and nobles. At the same time, we get a glimpse of Becky's father running and crying for his daughter, Martha trying to keep him in check, and Henderson being as elegant as ever. Martha engages a discussion with the latter. Somehow, they seem to know each other, given that she gives him the nickname Henry. We later see a beautiful panel indicating the beginning of the twilight. As Henry previously mentioned, it really seemed like it was a deadlock. Billy comes out in order to check for the police's response to his demands. As stated by the officer, 3 prisoners are getting freed at this precise moment. He then allows for only one person to bring food and water to the kids. The aforementioned trio is discussing. Becky's dad wants to prepare the best meals, not thinking that it will make the hostages' situation worse by antagonizing the Red, wisely pointed out by Martha. She, on the other end, thought of rations, which subtly implies that she was in the military. In the end, Master Henderson was the one chosen. His presence was greatly appreciated by the little adults and put them at ease. On his walk, he stumbles upon the tutor and resident, who acted as chaperone for this bus. Saying that he was wounded due to his car's tires being shot at, Henderson elegantly proposes to switch his place with him, another feat for this character. Seriously, Master Henderson since the very beginning of the manga has shown to be the most respectable, honest, and upstanding teacher at Eden Academy. If it wasn't for him alone, I feel that a lot of readers would not respect the institution as much. He's the very personification of all of the good aspects of being a noble. Further after the switch, he gets to witness Anya being nonchalant regarding everything. He internally applauds her nerves and reminisces about the time where she told him that she runs through a jungle to get strong and other kid-like exaggerations. After tasting the rations from Black Bale's company, everyone except Becky agrees that it tastes kinda mid. In this disgustation, Henderson asks the leader if he has any kids, to which the latter answered positively, although he adds the details that she was killed by the state. He gives us more information about the Red Circus origin. It was a student movement advocating for peace and equality, and they were simply speaking out to protect the weakest members of their society. By the look of things, the state was the one turning rogue on them, as peaceful as they were, and that radicalizes the group. That finally cements his position on the matter. He is against the institutions, and as such, he will not listen to Master Anderson. Finally, we are shown that Yuri has been able to find the abandoned bus by covering its track. We are welcomed by a flashback from Billy's perspective, who appears to be his daughter, is sharing her most passionate opinions on the current political climate of the country. Moreover, she seems to be a very selfless individual, considering how she speaks mostly by talking about other people's condition, rather than her own. Her name is Biddy. So we got Billy, the father, we got Bill, the old kid, and we got Biddy, the daughter. So from now on, I'm just gonna refer to um, Billy as Squire or Mr. Squire when I'm talking about both. Her father tries to put her back to reality, but she refuses to listen and quickly accuses him of being an enemy too. Those quick and bold judgments are typical characteristics of teenagers. I would say that she is about 15 years old. As quickly as we got to know about Biddy's existence, as quickly she died. And the second page to be exact. As a result of her death, Billy Squire has been marked by the State Security Service, and that is probably when he started loathing them. The last panel from the flashback is exclusively Billy staring at the corpse of his lifeless daughter. The next panel includes two little girls of Eden Academy sleeping. This is a very powerful metaphor, and this is probably the only reason why he did not hurt any kids yet, or maybe because of his philosophies. Back in the present, we witness what appears to be Anya reading the past of Squire, as shown by the sparks in the panel. She seems to be able to view it as clearly as when she was reading Bond's mind. The red circus driver is getting more and more agitated, while Billy continues to stay passive. He mentions the name of Bruce and the second bus. Then, we get transported exactly where that vehicle is, under Yuri's point of view. His team is preparing a tear gas attack against 6 targets who are by the bus. As soon as they got the okay, they promptly engage with the 6 criminals. They try to use the kids as bait, but they are simply outmatched by the SSS. Although Yuri got shot around his strap muscles, that still doesn't stop him from giving a sharp kick to the leader of those bunch and eradicate the threat. The only wounded was himself. As he screams in pain while getting treatment, he wonders why did he engage on such activity for Anya. In only 3 pages, a masterful performance was depicted by the SSS, and Yuri was their maestro. To all of his haters, this was a good way to show that the author knows how to do more with him than gag chapters. He is shown to be extremely capable, helpful, caring for the hostages, and still goofy by the way he acted in the end. Though it still comes from a place of selfishness. I doubt he would have intervened if he didn't know any of the hostages. A while later, the creepy looking SSS officer, as well as the police, got the information regarding the second bus. Due to that victory, the SSS now has complete power over the situation. He immediately plans to do a hostile attack under the falsehood that they attempted a peaceful resolution. So that proves that he knows exactly how bad his actions are. He uses intimidation in order to get the terrorists to act. They have until dawn to think. The mustache driver, Vadim, is rapidly losing his mind over the ultimatum, and as Billy thinks he failed, his subordinates beg him to not give up this easily and try to convince him to continue the operation by the means of his feelings. The driver understands that Billy is mentally defeated and is preparing himself to blow the bus if needed. This goes to show how moderate Billy actually is. He is by no means really attached to the Red Circus goals, seeing how easily defeated he felt, and is thrown off by the remarks of his allies trying to convince him to stay. In my opinion, he joined the group because of his daughter was in it, and stayed closely to her ideals as possible, but also because he was marked by the SSS. Yes, he did take children as hostages, but he did not hurt any of them and use fake bomb devices. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he is a good guy, but he could change for the better with a little help. Seeing the driver's true intentions, Anya gets startled. There is no time for jokes now. As he is thinking of the detonation method, an SSS guard regiment makes his presence known. The violent officer is giving the order to strike at night, which invalidates the time period that he gave the extremists earlier. Anya, sensing that a confrontation is about to strike, is advancing yet again towards the front row of the bus. Finally, we get to see one of Anya's parents' reaction to the news of her being gone from home. As expected, Eden Academy does not tell any truth and just mention that the trip is taking longer than expected. Little did they know, Yor takes her role as a mother seriously. Thus, she phone calls Sharon, one of her co-workers, and asks her about her kid. She confirms the suspicion that Yor had and mentions that the trip was cancelled. That surprises Miss Forger by making her anxious. By making the threat a school trip, Tatsuya Endo was making sure that Lord and Yor would just not be able to resolve the conflict in a whim due to their prestigious hidden professions. I feel like that was the perfect time to introduce Yor into the conflicts as it is close to be night. Yet again in the bus, Anya is facing a humongous obstacle that is to stop the SSS from getting near. But what is her plan? She approaches Billy Squire. Forgot to think of a plan, so she improvises something that is the fact that she is hungry for more rations, that she mispronounces rations. Henderson tries to calm her down to no effect. This again forces Mr. Squire to think of his terrific past. Since Anya can read his mind as is he thinking of the past, she tries to say the same word as Biddy in an effort to convince him. This gets him to act very irrationally. Hence, he detaches the bomb from Anya and told her to leave the bus, but only her. She brilliantly notices that he does not feel like doing evil deeds when she is around the place, which leads her to stay in place in order to save her classmates. He of course does not understand her reasons. After all, she, Damien, and his goons are part of the bourgeoisie, so there is no more reason for them to care for anybody else. However, those kids have shown him in 3 events that there will always be an exception to the rule and that the bourgeoisie isn't a monolith as he thought it was. With Little Forger's insistence, Billy is suspecting them of not getting the food that they need at home, contrary to his beliefs. To confirm his theory, he asks her about why she is so concerned about everyone's food. Anya, looking through her catalog of lies, chooses one phrase from her father, his most important quote: "I want to make a world where kids don't need to cry," and poses to make it look even more poignant. As such, everyone is another level more baffled than the previous time. The consequences is that Billy is questioning his beliefs even more, especially the one about equality. The Catman, witnessing the loss of will of Billy, tries to manipulate his feelings once more in order to radicalize him. Squire is reminiscing again about his daughter. Here, their exchange is very interesting. "I was feeding the neighborhood cats, but it was awful. The bigger cats kept trying to steal all of the smaller cats' food. When I tried to stop them, I was all scratched up." You know how it is with animals, survival of the fittest. I know that, but still, I can't bear to hear anyone cry. The first quote is such an obvious metaphor to the modern human condition. I am not talking about death, but more so on how we live. The bigger cat represents the 1%, or the rich and powerful, while the smaller cat represents everybody else. No matter how much food, money, the bigger cat has in his plate, that isn't enough for him. He also has to get what is on the plate of the weaker cat, as meager as it is. It's almost as if they are more satisfied in taking rather than eating. After all, it is a demonstration of their power and privilege. They know that the smaller cat cannot or won't fight back. The institutions are just too strong. The powerful oppresses, and I hope that they will remain at the top. The second quote might be a reference to social Darwinism. It is a fascist ideology used in order to try to undermine a minority group. It was used by Germany in World War II, and since Ostania and Westalis seem to take a lot of inspiration from that place in the Cold War era, it fits. Social Darwinism is basically apologizing the persecution of people based on their race, religion, or ethnicity by using a survival of the fittest approach. However, humanity is way long past that point. Since we live in a society, the weak are protected and do not die because of their inaptitude to adapt. Presently, They die for other reasons like a lack of money or because they were rejected by the sage society. Animals, in contrary, still live in a survival of the fittest way. I am pointing all of that just because I know that we cannot just compare animals to humans, even if the metaphor is clear. The last quote is just the essence of how human societies got built. It wasn't a wish to protect everyone for optimal survival, but since humans have emotions, we could also say that it wasn't a wish to protect the weak, those who cannot do it themselves. Pity is the purest form of that philosophy. It is so kind and human. It helps nothing for ourselves, yet we do it anyway. She is the beacon of light that his dad needed, and this is probably what will help him later in this chapter. Their next actions adds more credibility to my little analysis. Billy says, "Hey, wait a minute, did you take that food from our pantry?" Biddy giggles. Billy says, "You know we barely have enough food for ourselves." She then says that he was the one who raised her like this. Be a giver, not a taker. Help each other up, don't hold each other down. All of those quotes are from Billy, so that solidifies his beliefs. Though he strayed a little from his beacon of light, it seems that he finally realizes that he never forgot about her and his philosophies. He was just actively trying to keep memories of her from fading away. Vadim hurries Billy to make a decision, but it seems like he already knew deep down what he needed to do. Hence, he collects the gun from the angry man, departs from the bus, and as he is walking towards the police, he finally points out what I previously thought. He indeed knew that the Red Circus was not doing the right thing, which means that he really did all of that to keep on living. His beliefs were covered in snow, and they were just waiting for it to melt away and be picked up again. In an act of self-salvation, he surrendered at once. Everyone, Henderson, Anya, his two acolytes, the police, the State Security Service, and its leaders. Even the readers were all flabbergasted. The female co-worker tried desperately to pull Billy back with no results. Vadim was panicking and recklessly ignited the bus, leaving his two allies out. As he was trying to run away, the police, with the help of armored vehicles, stopped its track, causing a commotion in the bus. In a last-ditch effort, he took Anya out of the bus and started running away. The SSS gave the order to kill, but the police rightfully stopped them. But they completely ignored them and were going to shoot anyway. In the sky, we see the trained Martha letting out a thunderstrike with the help of her zap gun from Black Belt Industries, neutralizing the threat and catching Anya elegantly. I think it is safe to say that Martha Marriott saved the day. The conflict resolving itself left a sour taste in my mouth, but now that I'm rereading the arc, I think it makes perfect sense for Billy to give up on its own. I don't have to iterate everything that I've previously said, although I think it is important to note that Billy Squire kept all of his stances on equality and fairness since the time with his daughter. He was just too bitter with the institutions to stop the wrong actions of his group. He might have thought that knowing what they were doing but not sharing the same extremist actions made him morally better than them, except by not correcting their ways, he allowed his members to be further radicalized. I mean, hell, the bus driver really was a bad person, living under the notion of equality, while he just wanted revenge. He did not once question his position on the matter and really tried to take Billy by his feelings multiple times throughout the previous chapters. Thankfully for the victims, he was a reasonable individual who was able to see reason. In one final act of kindness, he even tried to save the fate of his two partners. As a Spy X Family fan, he is definitely someone that I want to see again throughout the manga. I want him to change his ways and become a more respectable person, and the same goes for his partners. I want them to be ongoing characters that the author will use to tell other stories, fun or serious. I believe that he should provide us a chapter of their interrogations to further their development as well. I have no fear about my wish. Please recall that the Red Circus were introduced in a gag chapter featuring Yor. and return over 45 chapters later with another story to tell. Tatsuya Endo used all of his resources to make an original and fun story that develops everyone's bonds. I will give more details about what I think of the arc in general and the conclusion, so continue to listen for just a little more. This chapter takes a lighter note than the previous. The Stellar Star ceremony begins, and the four heroes approach for their prize. Anya Forger, Becky Blackbell, Damian Desmond, and Bill Watkins. I don't think it is a surprise to anyone. They all actively took risks to protect their classmates, so not much to say here. The Stellar Star is Anya's second, and with the rate that we are going, she might have all 8 at chapter 300. This was Bill's and Becky's first, and they are taking the news wonderfully. Anya uses the opportunity to act smugly, and Damien doesn't really understand why he got one. His lawyer goons try to use the crap my pants ruse as a way to cheer him up. Unsurprisingly, it doesn't work. We are then transported into the past, when the suspects were getting arrested. Those dangerous criminals were ordered to be transported to Station 13. We don't know what it means, but I'm keeping note on that number just in case it becomes relevant. Damien gets freed from his collar and is trying to act tough around the rescuers who are trying to reassure him. It looks like this is a way to not tarnish the Desmond name. However, as the story advances, he almost exclusively do it towards strangers rather than his classmates. It's a very nice touch to see him grow in that aspect and care a little less about his appearance at school. This is undoubtedly because of Anya, who made him see that he wasn't the hot stuff. Later, Becky reunites with her weeping father, who was worried sick about her. Her mother didn't come per request, but it's nice to see that Becky has a very caring family. The author will probably reveal her later in the story, and doing so right now might remove some liberties in her design. Everyone looks like they have reunited, except for Damien and Anya. He compliments her with no sarcasm attached and how she dealt with everything, and he also apologized for the first time for the way that he was treating her before. Aware on how down he looks, Anya returns a compliment to make him feel better. During the whole bus incident, Anya really lacked any social awareness or empathy about others. Because she knew a lot of things that other people did not, she did not hesitate to act tougher than she was normally. It made people terrified for their life multiple times, yet she continued. So at least she's trying to be genuinely nice to Damien, and without any regards on the mission. Cyan Boy gets flustered by her praise and say that it was not a big deal and that friends are here for that. It is then that Anya remembers about this friendship scheme. Not gonna lie, Damien finally calling Anya her friend after 75 chapters feel very well deserved and heartwarming. It developed in a very realistic way, and they had to live a lot of moments together in order to achieve that level. Thus, Anya asks in a dishonest way if she could come to Damien's house. She said it so clumsily that he thought again that she only wanted to have a connection to the Desmond name. As he's lamenting about his absent parents, she pats him for good measure. At that moment, Yor is seen sprinting towards her at absurd speed. She tries, in her own assassin way, to make sure that she is okay, by giving morbid details that you normally shouldn't tell children. It is right after this that Anya bursted into tears after letting go of her facade. Henderson and Damien were here to witness an appropriate reaction from the pink-haired kid. In parallel, the two members of the strike team were discussing about the events, and it is revealed that Lloyd was in fact here all along. For me, this is a big problem, although it may not seem like one. First, it completely messes up the rewards of this chapter. Indeed, if Floyd was in the strike team all along, it would mean that the SSS would have no charge against the boss, or that he would have been able to defuse the situation from within, meaning that Anya defusing the situation would have not mattered as much. And consequence, this takes off from her achievements. It doesn't feel like Anya did the unthinkable by saving practically everybody. It felt like she could have made more mistakes with no more consequences. It does elevate Lloyd's competence yet again, but at what cost? We already know the extent of his abilities. He's a master at spying, and we are shown that fact times and times again throughout the story. Is it really worth it in a narrative perspective to bring up somebody that is already at the top? Now, whenever there will be a great danger, her first reaction will be, hey, this might be Lloyd in disguise, or Lloyd is probably seeing this from somewhere, because I fear that he is simply too competent at this moment. Furthermore, if he is shown to not be as competent later in the story, we will feel betrayed by his character and make him look less competent than he is. In other words, pulling up Lloyd has the effect of pulling everything else down in this arc. If he was able to infiltrate the role of one of his mortal enemies, what else can he do? Let's leave it at that. Yor notices Damien and tells the boy that she saw Melinda's car after running past it, and that she would be arriving soon. This surprises him. It looks like he expected to go back home with his butlers again. Anya, on the other hand, saw Melinda as a rival for the scheme. No later than that, we saw the scared mother sprinting and pounce-hugging the perplexed boy. I expected her to not be so kind as a person, but she seems to love Damien. Although she has obsessive thoughts, similar to Yuri's. Even Anya points that out. He couldn't hold it anymore and started sobbing. I bet Damien felt more vulnerable at this moment. Seeing Anya cry earlier probably softened him. He did try to put on an act, but her mother quickly stopped him. However, the moment Damien mentioned his dad, it's like a switch turned inside Melinda. She started saying nice things while thinking horrible things about Damien. Miss Desmond referred to her husband as that man, so I think it gave us an insight on their proximity. She even tells Damien to not tell him that she was here. The grudge she must have against Donovan is probably insane. Those contradicting thoughts linger until the very end of the chapter and leave us spooked. From what I understand, she really loves Damien, but as soon as Donovan was mentioned, she was not seeing Damien as a boy, but as his. This is why there is a sudden turn in her personality at this point. It is her love as a mother fighting against the hate that she has against the politician. In her mind, Damien was shifting from her product to his product, which is why she wanted him to get hurt while be glad that he was safe at the same time. This boy cannot catch a break. His family is full of deranged people. If I had to guess, I would say that Donovan was stopping her from ever seeing Damien as a way to forge his character or something, because she clearly does not live with him, and that fact is also confirmed in the next chapter that I will not review. That nature will surely be explained way later in the story, so the only thing we can do now is to theorize on what happened to her. I would like to finish by confirming that she loves Damien, and it is probably why when she was in the car with Yor, she had a very peculiar face. I think it was because she wanted to talk about him, but stopped herself. Ultimately, I will say that this arc is very good. Tatsuya once again proves that he can successfully marry comedy and drama in a very tense arc that made characters' bonds even stronger than before. Chapter 68, mostly gag focused, was a red herring regarding the rest of the arc. We were led to believe that Yuri would be nothing more than an obsessive brother who could only be serious when regarding Yor. However, I was pleased to see that he was not only able to care about Anya, Lloyd's kid, but was also very successful regarding the save the hostage mission that he practically helped to fruition. He is very competent in his line of work and also cares a lot about his family in general. He tried times and times again to convince himself that he was doing it for selfish reasons, but it seems like he has a heart in the right place. Anya and Becky shared a lot of moments together that made their relationship as hard as steel. They brainstormed ways to alert people outside of the bus about the situation, exchanged secret codes, which were really Anya's bad handwriting, and cared for each other until the very end. Becky got rightfully mad at Anya for clumsily dealing with the bomb around her neck. Nonetheless, that wasn't enough to break their bonds. Moreover, the link that she has with her father was heartwarming to see. I never expected a noble to act so emotionally with his kid. Speaking of steel, though the bombs were fake and Billy wasn't an aggressive guy, it takes a lot of courage to directly speak to your captors. While two of them, especially one, was very unreasonable and unpredictable. Dealing with the assault team was also a feat on its own because she needed to manage both of the parties at the same time. Although Lloyd being here kinda undermines that aspect, it remains something very gutsy. That arc worked on Anya's empathy towards others and her maturity in general, which she still lacks. Billy is an interesting character for the reason that he barely changed throughout this event. We might think otherwise since he gave himself to the police, yet in the flashbacks and in the present, he never forgot his morals, nor his daughter. It was always about equality and protecting the weak. He was just so bitter about being marked by the SSS that he simply did not care about the Red Circus's methods. Billy Squire even acknowledges the bad action of his group. I think he was helping simply because her daughter was a member until her death. By being with them, he could say in a way that he was with Billy. Anya, through her sincere and stolen words, was just shoveling the snow that was covering the old Billy. She made him question himself so much that he just went back to being his old self again, kind and protective, just like he taught his daughter, who was the essence of being a caring human. So, the conclusion to his character made perfect sense in the end. Let's not forget Damien. He acted as a real leader in this entire trip gone bad. He put himself at risk for his classmates by setting his pride aside, was continually trying to do better thanks to Anya, and showed a lot of empathy for others. In a time of crisis, I am happy to say that he is smart enough to leave his bratty behavior in a closet until the matter is closed. I thoroughly enjoy how his character was treated throughout this whole operation, and seeing his mother being there for him at the end was a most deserving reward. She might be a little deranged, but her love for him is pure. This arc is good, but the fact that Lord was here and the matter resolved itself pulls it down by a lot. Since Billy surrendering made sense, I think it would have been wise if the dangerous driver wasn't so easily defeated. This time, it would have been for others to save Anya, rather than the contrary. What I mean by that is that Anya should have been in a position where she really couldn't pull any stunts, and others would have been the only one capable of helping her. There would have been a real active threat, and we would know that it's no bluff. Otherwise, I was very content with the whole operation. One last thing, Henderson remains as elegant as ever. This video took a week to write, and I would appreciate if you showed a lot of love in the comments and by using the like feature. Also talk about it to your friends, family, dogs, and in Reddit or whatever. Anything. Please! I have nothing more to say. This video was a blast to create and write. Until we meet again. It is such a good night to dance. It is such a good night to Scooby-Doo.